Welcome to the Butterfly Effect. I'm Chris Horner. This is stage 7 of the Giro d'Italia 2023. Today's stage at almost 220 kilometers long and a summit finish that is 2 climbs in 1 climb because it's really about 45 kilometers long. The last part of the climb, the last 4K, are going to be really stiff. And in years past, talking about 2018, when Simon Yates won here, it was a big-time blow-up on the GC classification, with Simon Yates winning across the line over Thibaut Pinot, the FDJ rider. You go way back into the late times, when we're talking about my times, Marco Pantani's won on this climb too, so it's had some fantastic battles on today's race, and normally this is going to be the first big showdown for the GC contenders here at the Giro d'Italia to battle on this last climb. But the riders always decide how the race goes, and when today's race starts, we see there's some rain out there and people are all dressed up in their warm coats. Before the race rolled out proper, Remco Evenepoel said, the crashes that he's had in the past, rainy stages, he's healing from those. He's not as sore here at the Giro as he was during the Vuelta when he won the red jersey in last year's 2022 season. So he's pretty happy and he thinks he'll be okay. Geraint Thomas says in his interview before the race starts that he doesn't know what can happen on a stage like this, but anything is up there when we're talking about a mountain finish, so all is possible on today's stage. When the riders roll out, like I said, they got the rain jackets on. Looks kind of like going to be a really miserable, long 218 kilometers on today's stage, and I don't think the riders are going to enjoy much of today's race. Right away, the racing gets on. We'll see some early attacks, but it doesn't take very long for 4 riders to go up the road. And we see Coritex, Karel Vasic up there, Simone Patelli from Intermarché, Davide Baez is up there, and then we see the Green Project, Hinek Mullenbrough. With those 4 riders up there, they're going to start gaining a lot of time on the peloton. We look right away when the cameras come back. It's DSM that's going to be on the front, and already the clock is getting up to a 4-minute gap on the peloton, being led behind by DSM with race leader Luke Nissen. Got his team driving on the front, but nobody's driving. They're just pedaling and soft pedaling. Now, there's not going to be much to talk about in the early parts of the stage because realistically, all there was some clothes put on early in the stage when we see Remco Evenepoel back there and he's all dressed up, and then we see the race leader's pink jersey. Well, he's pulled over to the side of the road because there's so much free time on today's race that his teammate grabbed his leg warmers, went over to the right side of the road, handed his leg warmers to Luke Nissen as Luke Nissen started putting leg warmers on to stay warm in today's race because it's cold when you're sitting on the wheel. Guys, this is a miserable kind of day. I experienced this at Tour of California. Going down the 101, going south all the way from San Francisco. It rained for 6 hours straight. And when you're sitting on the wheel on these easy pedaling days, you're just freezing back there. I'd rather be up in the break of 4 and spending energy up there than sitting on the wheel behind because you are so cold. And that's why you see race leader in the pink jersey pulled over to the side, putting his leg warmers on, and his mechanic or his staff members up there helping him get his left leg on as he's putting his right leg warmers on. Finally, they get going, and they got to make up a big gap, but it's no problem because when we go back up to the peloton, you see EF Education and a bunch of the other riders all pulling over to the right side of the road, with EF Education riders even having time to go into the trunk of the car to pull out whatever warm gear that they want out of their rain bags that keep all their warm weather gear in the back of the car because it's super important. That's why you see those bags back there with the EF Education rider, the black bags. They'll have their sunglasses in there. They'll have rain jackets in there. 4 or 5 extra pair of gloves. I always kept race gloves, warm gloves, winter gloves, every kind of glove imaginable, leg warmers, arm warmers, vests, everything you could possibly need for a day like today. That's why you see everybody changing and getting warmer because the racing is so easy. Now, the gap up to the 4 leaders, it's going to expand and start going up to 8, 9, 10 minutes. And then when we get into the real KOM, the first one here on today's stage, we see this the Green Project rider, and he's going to drop off the back. He doesn't have the legs to stay up here with the front riders. As he drifts off the back, he'll get absorbed by the peloton, but he won't get absorbed for like 40 kilometers. That's the time gap that these 3 riders up front, originally 4, had before he dropped off from Green Edge Project, and he's got a lot of time to think about dropping off from the front group of 3. Now, a little bit of chaos happens when we see a crash with the 2 Americans, Sepp Kuss and Riccatello. Those 2 riders will go down, and then they'll get back up and get back into the peloton. things start getting a little bit hotter out as the sun starts to shine. Once we get under about 100 kilometers to go, that's when all of a sudden we see the race leader taking his leg warmers back off. Now, before this 100 kilometers to go, they had the first KOM. And it was Davide Baez that took the first position for the KOM. But behind in the peloton, it was Thibaut Pinot that was grabbing some more KOM points to buffer his lead here at the Giro d'Italia. We had a little bit of sprint action back in the peloton by Mads Pedersen before that, but that was about all that was going on today's race. Now, all of a sudden, we start getting under 50 kilometers to go. The gap is still at about 12 minutes, and the peloton is still taking it pretty easy. The DSM riders are going through the roundabout. You look at the first DSM rider, he looks over to the left. You know something happened over there on the left side of the roundabout. When the cameras fade back, we see it's Quick Step back there, pseudo Quick Steps. Peter Siri went down hard. You see his shorts all ripped up in his jerseys, getting a little help from the spectator there to get him back on his bike. He'll jump on and get back up to the peloton, but pseudo Quick Step with two riders having problems here. This is just adding to all their woes at this early part of the first week of racing at the Giro. Now, pseudo Quick Step have been magical on today's race. Remember, they gave the jersey away to Luknison already a few stages back, so they don't have to ride at all with DSM doing all of the work on the front. Not setting a steady pace, not setting a hard pace up front, but they are doing all the work for everyone to sit back, and pseudo Quick Step's doing a great job tactically. Along with pseudo Quick Step, we'll look at Jumbo-Visma all wrapped around each other in the peloton there. They're the same thing, sitting back, saving some energy everywhere. But they did, of course, have Sepp Kuss go down earlier in the stage, and that is the ace lieutenant when we're talking about this final 45-kilometer climb to stay close to Primoz Roglic, if anything should start to happen on this climb. Up front, the group of three, they'll come into this final climb starting with about 45 kilometers to go, and they got a 12-minute gap on the peloton behind. Now, there is a little bit of a GC threat up here in the front group with Simone Patelli at just under 8 minutes down on the general classification, so DSM are going to have to do a little work on this climb proper. Once we see the peloton make the left turn off the main road and start this climbing, DSM's all over the front. Now we start looking at a little bit of a story here with Samuele Battistella from Astana, who's got Cavendish on his wheel, the sprinter here at the Giro. Now with Samuele Battistella, he's dropping off the back with Cavendish, and he sees some free lunch right there on the left side as he picks up a couple shish kebabs. He offers one back there to Cavendish, then he offers one to the motorcycle driver, offers one to the camera guy, offers another one to the Corotec rider as they're catching him. So everybody dropping out of the bunch of back of the peloton early on this final climb of stage 7. Well, these guys aren't going to go hungry, that's for sure, because Samuele Battistella made sure he brought up some grub there from the side of the road. Was a slow stage throughout the day. Now I'll give you one little story that makes this stage a little bit more interesting. Jonathan Vaughters was brought on with about 100 kilometers to go, and he's talking about how they were trying to nurture and find that golden nugget of a rider back in the earlier days when Primoz Roglic had just first started his cycling career and had switched over from ski jumping. Well, Jonathan Vaughters had pushed his team a little bit hard, he said, in terms of finding a gold nugget. And by the time he found Primoz Roglic, he said he tried to pass it off to his team to basically make this nugget shine. They didn't want to, and they turned down Primoz Roglic, is what Jonathan Vaughters said. Well, we all know what Primoz Roglic has done throughout his career since, so that was a hard hit. Now, I do remember one story with racing against Primoz Roglic at the Tour of Azerbaijan when I was racing for Airgas. We got up there together on one of the only mountain stages there at Azerbaijan. When we hit the climb that was going to decide the stage, I backed off just a little bit because I was taking my vest off and Primoz Roglic was attacking going up the road. I knew he was the best rider and super important to keep an eye on him up the climb, but I had fabulous climbing legs there and thought for sure I could bridge back up to the Slovenian. At that point in time, I'd never seen this kid before. This was the first time at Azerbaijan in 2015 where I was starting to experience what Primoz Roglic can do. I was behind going through all the traffic after I took my vest off, flying up, making progress the whole way up there to Primoz Roglic. And as I got to about 20 seconds behind him, I just couldn't close the gap any further. He'd finally dropped off all his companions. They latched onto the back of me. And once we went over the climb, we had about 20 kilometers to go all the way into the finish of that stage of Azerbaijan, and Primož Roglič was in TT mode. Now behind, I told you I was feeling good. I was doing 400, 450 watts pulls with one other guy helping me in our group of 3 on that stage, and we couldn't bring back any time on Primož Roglič. So when you talk about Jonathan Vaughters missing the nugget, I remember seeing what that gold nugget looked like in 2015, and he was shining pretty good in 2015 in terms of pure power, but he certainly didn't know quite how to ride his bike during that time. So this is basically how a lot of the commentators can ease up some of this boring time throughout the stage, is bringing on some guests like Jonathan Vaughters from EF Education to entertain all of us. That was the most exciting part, with the exception of a few of the crashes. Now, as the 3 riders up front, we're coming into about 6.5 kilometers to go, and they got 6.5 minute lead on the peloton from DSM. So we know Luknison, with 1 teammate left, just before that, we know he's going to keep the race leader's pink jersey if the favorites back there don't start attacking. Now, once we go down the descent, coming into the final difficult section of this final climb on stage 7, this is when quick steps start getting to the front. So we're all on the edge of the seat trying to figure out what's going to happen for this final 4-kilometer pitch up to the top. The cameras will go back up to the front 3. We see with about 3.5 kilometers to go that this is when Patelli, he starts throwing in his attack. Simone Patelli from Intermarché throws in a big attack, and Davide Baez from Iolo Cometa follows directly on the Intermarché's wheel. We see Carrel back there from Corotec. He's gapped off, but he's suffering hard to try to get back up to those 2 leaders. He'll bridge back up, throw in his own attack, but it doesn't go anywhere. Did cause a little bit of chaos there, because I thought maybe that we'd see Patelli, that was riding so aggressive, make Baez pull on the front, but Baez is having none of it, and he makes Patelli pull back the rider up front to make 3 guys again. Now, with about 1.5 kilometers to go, Simone Patelli, Intermarché, throws in his second big effort here on the final climb of stage 7. Again, he gaps off Carrel from Corotec, but can't get rid of Davide Baez for Iolo Cometa, who really hasn't taken a pull on this final climb here once the attack started proper. Before that, all 3 riders were working magic together. But now Davide Baez wants a shot at winning today's stage, and he believes Patelli is the guy to watch. Well, we see Carrel from behind. He'll bridge back up, and then he'll start riding the front with about 1.2 kilometers to go. At this point in time, Carrel does not come off the front at all. We see him go under 800 meters to go. He's still on the front. We see him looking at his computer with 700 meters to go just before he throws in his big effort at last attack here at 600 meters to go. I don't know what Carrel was thinking. He's ridden from 1.2, and at 600 meters, now he's attacking from the front with everybody looking at him. Well, he throws in his attack. He rides on the front all the way to about 250 meters to go, and then Simone Patelli from Intermarché throws in a massive attack going to the left side of the road. It only lasts, though, for about 50 meters, 75 meters, and the Intermarché rider's head drops down as he blows, and then Davide Baez, Iolo Cometa, will throw in his attack with 175 meters to go. He'll drill it all the way to the line to win solo here at stage 7 for Iolo Cometa to take a fantastic victory here for such a small team at the Giro d'Italia. They have won stages here at the Giro d'Italia in the past, but this is another big famous climb here to win for such a small team. Now behind, what happened? Well, Carrel, he found a little more strength to dig deep. He passed Patelli with about 100 meters to go to get second. And then Simone Patelli will cross the line for Intermarché third. The peloton behind, what happened at about 4 kilometers to go? Well, they're all curb to curb. We see the big teams up front. It's Soudal Quickstep up there. Jumbo Visma's up there. UAE Team Emirates and Ineos are all locked at the front going curb to curb. Took till just under around 3 kilometers to go that Movistar jumped on the front and started stringing the group out back there. But basically, they just went in all on neutral today until about 100 meters to go when we started seeing that it was Remco Evenepoel sprinting to the finish, where he rounded out 4th on today's stage. 5th, Primož Roglič locked tight on the Belgian rider's wheel, not losing any time. Now, in terms of general classification, Andreas Luknison from DSM, he kept the race leader's jersey today because the pace was easy all day long, so he'll hold it again for DSM. When we're talking about the interviews after the stage, Simone Patelli said, I just did too much work. Yes, you did. You did way too much work here on today's stage. Carell, he talks about how difficult his career's been to get to this point in time, and he was just happy to have a stage like here at the Giro d'Italia in stage 7 and to be up the road and happy to be racing his bike some more. And that definitely showed because he was pulling like crazy for no reason all the way from 1.2 all the way to the finish. He just wanted to make sure he got himself a podium finish. When we look at the interview from Davide Baez, Iolo Cometa, he said he thought he raced a smart race and he was perfect. Everybody else had to do all the work for him, all the way from 3.5 kilometers to go to the finish, and then he lit everybody up with 175 kilometers to bring a very, very big and impressive win to Team Iolo Cometa here at the Giro d'Italia. Behind, who are the knuckleheads behind? Well, when I'm sitting up here on the butterfly effect, it's all about pointing out what's going on in the racing. And when I look at today's race, I think the big-time knuckleheads on today's race have to be UAE Team Emirates and Team Ineos. We've seen Ineos riding on the front many, many times here at the Giro d'Italia. And when you look at a stage like today, where everything had gone so easy, everybody's so fresh to start the last 45 kilometers climb here 7 days into the Giro d'Italia, fresh anyways. When I see this stage, though, and I think Soudal Quickstep have crashed a lot, Remco Evenepoel's crashed a lot too. When I see 45 kilometers to go and a climb like we see today, it's difficult at the beginning, but it's not crazy difficult, but hard enough to see if you could isolate Remco Evenepoel if you can. And then once you get him by himself, you can start attacking, because I pick UAE Team members because they have two riders, Jay Vine and Almeida, that are thread on the GC, so they can attack left and right, along with their other super domestiques like Brandon McNulty, who could set a blazing pace with 45 kilometers to go and really decimate the peloton. And then I take Ineos because they still had 5 guys left at the end of today's stage. And one rider who dropped off early, Filippo Ganna, that helped G. Thomas when he had a little bit of a chain problem. Imagine if you put Filippo Ganna on the beginning of this climb with 45K to go and just drill it. He's just one of your lead out guys and sprinters into this mountain stage. If you drill him in there sprinting, he pulls off. All of a sudden, we got a reduced peloton. You're still going to have 2, if not 4 Ineos riders there. You'll probably have, for sure, 2 and most likely 4 UAE Team Emirates rider there, and maybe only 1 Remco Evenepoel. Now, like I said, Soudal Quickstep did a great job. This is exactly how I would have raced the stage, so you could give all your teammates as much rest as possible. Remco Evenepoel, Soudal Quickstep were perfect. When we're talking about Primoz Roglic and Jumbo-Visma, I believe the same thing. Jumbo-Visma need as much time as they possibly can to get their other riders to come up on form, and on top of that, Sepp Kuss crashed today too. So give them as many days as you possibly can to get better and better here at the Giro d'Italia. Soudal Quickstep, as many days as they can to recover from this early week here at the Giro d'Italia to get better and better. But UAE Team Emirates and Ineos are both on solid form here and have multiple riders. This stage was ideal to drop the whole team from Remco Evenepoel, Soudal Quickstep, isolate him, and then attack him on the slightly less steep sections of the climb when he's just by himself, or maybe only have 1 teammate and try to go up the road. Afterwards, the interview from Garrett Thomas, he's asked that exact question, why weren't Ineos being more aggressive? And Garrett Thomas said there was a headwind there, so this stage just wasn't ideal for that. But every time I was looking at some of the flags, and I'll show you the picture of the flag's really kind of drooping a little bit, so I wonder how much headwind there was. But if you take G. Thomas's word for it, well, then that would supersede what I just told you guys. Maybe it was wise to sit back. But remember, if there is a strong headwind, if you have isolated Remco Evenepoel down to just 1 teammate, or even better, by himself, once you attack up the road, you got 4 or 5 guys with you, all a bit of a threat on general classification, because those are the only guys left on a 45-kilometer climb. They can put big-time effort into making Remco Evenepoel and Soudal Quickstep chase from behind, which nobody did. I did not like the way the last 45 kilometers of today's race went when you're talking UAE Team Emirates and Ineos, unless, like Garrett Thomas said, the headwind was incredibly strong at the front. But I still believe you should have tried, and you should have put guys on the front with 45 kilometers to go to see just what could happen, because Soudal Quickstep's not looking all that magical in terms of full team strength here at the Giro d'Italia. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. Tomorrow's stage, anything could happen. I believe it'll be a breakaway that's going all the way to the finish tomorrow. But will the GC guys battle when we're talking about the last Category 2 climb near the finish of tomorrow's stage? Most likely they will, but who knows? When you look at today's stage, anything's possible, right? Like and subscribe. I'll see you on the next edition real soon.